There were three main goals we had in mind when building MRTK3. The first was modularity. We wanted to make MRTK more modular and easy to isolate into components, so you can pick and choose the individual packages you want without having to bring in all of MRTK, which can be quite large. And the second was flexibility in design. We wanted to make our UI tooling more flexible and easy for you to use. So for example, when you want to resize a button or adjust grid spacing, we wanted to make that experience more seamless. And to do that, we combined our rich 3D UI with the Canvas layout system so that now you can create UI that's both immersive and tactile, as well as automatically laid out and resizable. And third, performance was one of the key things we had in mind when designing MRTK3. We had performance in mind for all our MRTK modules so that you can build the best, most optimized app using MRTK.
You're muted, Diana.
Thank you so much for being here today. This is an amazing session that we're going to be hosting right now. It's all about do's and don'ts of successful corporate XR use cases with Anecio Neto. Thank you so much, Anecio, for being here. I understand you are an XR evangelist and community builder. We're super excited to have you here, and the stage is all yours.
Okay, thank you, Diana. I think I'm sharing the wrong window here. Just let me try to do one different thing. Can you see the presentation in presentation mode, or it's in?
It's not in presentation mode yet.
Yeah, so let me just do another thing here. Stop screen, presentation, share screen. Yeah, I'll share the whole screen. So I think that now you can see, right?
Yeah, we can see the presentation mode. Yeah, it's in, yes. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Diana. Sorry for that. Well, let me try to explain a little bit of what we should do and what we shouldn't do, and when we are trying to implement XR use cases in companies. First of all, let me talk about myself. I'm co-president of the Virara Chapter Association here in Portugal. I'm also a XR business expert at Siemens. I'm co-creator of the Techstars Startup Digest, which is a weekly newsletter that we release with articles and important information regarding XR technology. I'm a former XR for All ambassador. I was one of the organizers of the Startup Weekend Lisbon Immersive Tech. It's a huge It was a huge event like 3 years ago. And I'm a co-founder of the Brazilian Association of XR Producers and Company a few years ago. And I had a startup company called 360 a while ago as well. Well, let me go further. Let me hide this here. Yeah, well, again, thanks for being here with us. I'm going to present this topic in three main areas, like the corporate applications. So one of the questions that I get most from people is how can we use XR technology in companies and not on gaming? Because a lot of people think that gaming is the only thing that we can do with XR, and most of them don't know that we have a lot of different applications of XR for corporate users. And then I'm going to talk about the do's, or it means that I'm going to talk about how we should implement this and what kind of planning should be done and kind of research should be done to do that. And the don'ts is like the problems that you're going to face while implemented when it's not well planned and it's not well performed. Let's take a look at that. So some corporate applications, I like to separate in five different areas on how to use immersive technologies in companies. We can use in simulation and training. We can use for remote assistance. We can use for team collaboration. We can use for marketing and sales, and we can use for product design. These are the main areas, all the kinds of solutions that you're going to find for corporate uh, companies, for corporate experiences. Most of them are going to fit in those five categories. Let me talk about simulation and training, how you can do this, how you can implement it, and how you can use this. So XR can be used to improve learning and performance because you can use XR to simulate situations without putting people in risk, without spending money with equipments, without spending money with travels and a lot of different things, because you are going to simulate in a new reality using high tech and high quality graphics, and then you can manage to simulate things in like it's almost the real situation. Also, you can speed up the learning processes. And how is that? Because by using a VR solution for training, for example, you can allow the person to repeat that training, that test, that movement that he's doing, that he or she is doing more times with the same cost, because the solution is already developed, but and the person don't need to spend more money to do this. So he can test and test and test and do that thing again a lot of different times, so you can speed the learning process by uh, uh, letting the person to do more training with the same equipment. You can reduce costs of training. There is a high cost of implementation because you have to develop the experience, develop some 3D models or something like this. But it's important to understand that the upcoming cycles are not going to have the same cost as the first one. You're going to have one cost for the development of that training experience, and after that, I can't say it's going to be free because you have energy, you have the space to use the headsets. The headsets along the way you're going to need some changes, but the first cost, the cost of implementation is the highest one. The other ones are going to be really low with comparison to the first one. It allows remote training and accessibility. Imagine that you have an equipment that is overseas. You have to train someone that's at the office, and just has been selected as a new employee. You don't need to send this person overseas to train this. So the person can train in the office using virtual reality. He can train this a lot of times, and after that, this person can go overseas and use this new equipment, already knowing or how to use it because he's training by using virtual reality. You can create more engaging learning experiences. Imagine the comparison here is a regular training situation where people were reading books, watching videos, and watching someone explaining, like I'm doing right now, explaining to you what's happening. And in the other side, for VR training, for example, you are with a headset, seeing the exact equipment that you are going to use in your daily tasks, and you can try and you can make mistakes without even get any kind of problem just by using virtual reality trainings. This is one video with an example on virtual reality training. I'm not going to take the sound because you don't need to hear it. But this, in the left side, you can see one person with the headsets and the headset and the controllers, and he's going to perform a maintenance in one equipment. So here you can see this is a motor, so you can see all the spare parts over there, and the person can learn without even being in the factory or in whatever this motor is. So he can understand what parts are necessary to assembly that motor. So, and then he can test this by using virtual reality, and there is not going to be a problem if he does any kind of mistakes, because he's using VR training to do that. Another, yes, this one. Another area for use virtual reality, assisted reality, or augmented reality is remote assistance. It's important to understand that in remote assistance cases, one person is usually on the field, and this person doesn't know exactly everything that it needs to perform a maintenance or to install a new equipment or to do something like this, and he needs a colleague or she needs a colleague to be in the back office assisting them on how to do that operation. Imagine that this happens in a factory that is in another country, and then you send one technician, one is an engineer, to this another country to help and to do this, perform this maintenance. And then this engineer that went to the another country discovered that he doesn't know how to perform the maintenance on that equipment. So the company needs to send another person over there. If in this case we were using remote assistance solutions using XR, using remote assisted reality, for example, there is no need to send anyone else to the factory. You just connect two experts, the person on the field and the engineer in the back office, by using those headsets that can bring live image and live video from the equipment, and they can share information on how to repair that equipment. So it boosts the first time fix. It means that the person that is going to the field can fix the equipment on the first visit that he's going to do. You can increase technician productivity by helping and by connecting to colleagues with different expertise, and they can understand better and they can share experiences between them. You can reduce the technician error by providing a headset for the person who is on the field. The expert in the back office can assist him or her to do a better maintenance, and then you can avoid errors. You can allow remote expert assistance. This is the case that I mentioned before. Without even sending someone over there, a regular technician that is on the field can put the headsets and ask for support for someone in the back office. It can improve and shorten novice training, exactly as the same case as virtual reality. You can use the headsets to do live trainings in situations where, for example, you don't want to send a new technician to the field. You can get a more expert person who is working on the field and ask them to connect with the back office and share the information on how to perform maintenance on that equipment as well. And you can reduce the costly downtime of equipment. Imagine that one of those equipments can't be stopped with the problem for a long time, or they have to have a lot of problems regarding that. So when you use this kind of technology, you can speed up the maintenance of that. This is one case from Microsoft that is using Microsoft HoloLens to connect colleagues that are working in different places, and they are using both technologies, the mobile and also the smart glasses that they have in HoloLens too. So this person is on the field. They are trying to identify the problem. She's looking for the panel for errors. She identified the problem, and now she's going to connect with the person in the back office and ask for help. First, they are trying to use mobiles to connect. So she is sharing the images that are coming from the field to the expert that is in the back office. And the expert is giving some instructions and saying what she should do to make it work. And also, this can be done by using the smart glasses, as I mentioned before. Let me just advance. Yeah, in this case, she needs to have both hands free. So she's using this smart glass in the head, and then she can use the both hands to work and provide some more information and fix the problem that they are having over there. Another area where we can use augmented reality or virtual reality is team collaboration. And why is that? We can. There are a lot of different tools like spatial, like Glue, like Microsoft Mesh, like uh, Outspace VR, like a lot of different tools to collaborate to have people together, like Arthur, for example, as well. And the idea is to connect colleagues that are working in different places and put them to work together, but not only as a Zoom call where you only can see presentations and documents and see the image that's coming, but you can interact in a different way. You can interact with avatars, and then you can put people to draw in white walls, in whiteboards, and something like this. So you can inspire people to do work together in a different way that we are used to do since COVID came, that we are using Teams, Zoom, and Google Meetup to do the calls. So you can have better focus during collaboration, because when you're using a headset, you are not getting information coming from your colleagues that are coming from your home, for your neighbor, from the television, from the radio. So you're using a virtual reality headset, and then you are totally focused in the content that is coming over there. You can have enhanced training opportunities. And by that, I mean that you can have more and better content coming in a multimedia display with audio, images, videos, and anything that you can imagine that could come through VR can enhance these opportunities of training and can reduce time for doing that, because you can show more content in less time, and you can even do some testing to understand if the person is learning and measure the learning curve of the process. You can drive better the company culture by providing more trainings and controlling all the trainings that you're doing, and getting all the feedbacks from that. You can do it better. You can unleash the greater capacity, greater creativity from your employees and colleagues, because, as I mentioned before, a VR training, for example, has multimedia features, and you can draw, you can write, you can record videos, you can record audios, you can send pictures. Imagine that you are in a room where you can put in spatial positions, in different positions, images, videos, and you can do a report full of content that is much more richer than a regular call on Zoom, on Teams, for example. You can improve communication by adding those kinds of elements that I mentioned right now. So we are not just talking and seeing each other, and providing you with a lot of more information, a lot of more type of content to make the people understand better what is have to be understandable over there. This is an example from Microsoft as well. This is the Microsoft Mesh. It's something that's going to be released soon, and they are connecting people from different sites. So in this example, we have people that are not in the same room. They are working in the same project and seeing different things. They are using different equipments. Some of them are connected with the Microsoft HoloLens in the head, but the other ones might be connected even with tablets and even in regular PC, for example. In this case, you can see, yeah, they're joining the same meeting room and sharing the same kind of information at the same time. So they are, as I mentioned before, they are in different places. They are using different equipment, but they are using and looking to the same content and working together on the same content with a lot of resources, with video, audio, 3D models, and a lot of different things that makes learning much more easier than the regular calls that and meetings that we're using to have. This is only one of the examples of platforms that are doing something like this, and I'm going to show at the end some of the platforms that you can try as well. The other area that we can use XR is marketing and sales. So you can use this in a lot of different cases, but mainly to be one step ahead of your competitors, because they are usually doing the regular marketing campaigns with social networks and TV and printed media. So when you get something for augmented reality, mainly for augmented reality, this is something that brings the wow factor that I'm going to explain later. And it is really, really interesting to see people using AR in retail campaigns, for example. You can showcase your services to potential customers in advance. It means that you can build your product, you can develop a new campaign, even when you don't have the product over there. So you can show everything that you're developing, that you're planning to produce, or there is in production uh, to those clients by using virtual reality, for example. So you can design a product, show it to the client, you can sell this to the client, and then you can receive this later when it is finally ready. VR offers enhanced user experiences. It's quite interesting to see, for example, I've been to one or two fairs that you were using virtual reality to feel how the product is going to be in a near future. It wasn't even ready to be sold yet. It was on design planning or something like this, but you could feel how the product was going to be and how beautiful it would be after it was ready. You can use AR and VR to boost sales with all those resources that I mentioned before. And it's a perfect tool for content marketing. This is one of the examples that I brought to you about one dealership from Mercedes who is showcasing their cars using virtual reality. So the idea here is So the idea here is to use virtual tours to demonstrate some cars that they have in their store, so you could travel and visit all the store without even being there. And you can see all the models, and you can go a little bit further than that. You can visit the car itself. In some cases, you can just do a zooming and see everything that comes from that car. And the last one is the product design, product or project design. This is something quite interesting because seeing is different from predicting. So you can use virtual reality to see the result of a project without even spending money to build prototypes or something like this. You can have a better space visualization. This goes in the sense that sometimes designers are developing or their product, designing their product in a screen or computer screen, and sometimes for them it's difficult to understand the real size of that in scale. So when you use virtual reality, you can have the exact size. You can see the exact size of the product that you want to have. For example, there are a lot of different cars that have been developed by using virtual reality with different teams in different places. You can have massive savings during the prototyping phase of the products because you don't need to spend more money in building prototypes, physical prototypes. You can build virtual ones using virtual reality and having teams in different parts of the world working together in that prototype at the same time. As I mentioned, this allows team collaboration, which means that you can have colleagues working at the same time in different time zones, in different places, with different equipment by just using the headset and then developing some new cars or something like this. One example is McLaren. McLaren is developing some cars and some new cars by using virtual reality. So they have designers and engineers working together in cars by using those headsets to draw and adapt and edit some car details without even needing to prototype it physically. So they do a virtual prototype of that, and then they can work and test and then use some simulations to see if that design is going to work, it's going to be fine, and then without spending money by building physical prototypes, as I mentioned before. There is one case here. Yeah, so you can see the interior of the car, how it's going to be in the future. You can take parts and you put new parts over there, and it's really interesting to see that. And there are a lot of different situations where you can use AR and VR in companies as well. I've listed some over here. Uh, some of them for engineering, for data visualization, for tours, for a lot of different ones. And safety training, for example, is a quite interesting one because you don't need to put your worker in the front of the fire to do this. You can train them using VR in a safe position in the room without putting them in risk of the training. So what should we do to implement processes or create experiences using VR or XR? One of the things is define your goals. You need to understand before hiring someone to develop those technologies, those experiences, you should define what you really want to do. And it can't be, I want to have XR in my company, because it's not enough. If you do that, sometimes it's going to spend a lot of time and a lot of money by buying equipment and hiring people, and they won't know what they have to do because you didn't define your goals. So the most important part of having XR in your company is to define exactly what you want to do. If you want to reduce time, if you want to if you want to increase sales, if you want to train better your team, if you want to connect to your collaborators, if you want to connect your designers, whatever you want to do, define it before you go to the market and hire and buy some equipment. This is really, really important. After that, you have to target your audience. And by that, I mean, if you're planning to have a XR solution for the market, for marketing purposes, for example, you have to understand that some people will not like to use AR or VR. Some older people might have some difficulty to use headsets, and because some of them use glasses, and some of them don't like to use mobile telephones. And to the people who is much younger, they might love to use that. So you need to target your audience. If you're looking for another perspective of trainings and solutions for corporate, you have to understand if the people who are going to use the solution, if they can use the solution on the field, for example. You can't send virtual reality headsets to places where there is no internet, where there is no electricity, where there are no conditions for use that equipment. So you need to understand who is going to use it and plan on how they are going to use that. Also, you have to develop your content. And by that, I mean, you don't need to hire at the first time one developer from virtual reality or augmented reality. But the content that is going to be presented in those experiences should be developed by you. You don't need, and you don't have to hire someone to write down the rules of your company or whatever you have to do in your processes. You have to identify that before hiring someone to do a training. I've seen some cases that companies that hired developers to do VR training, and they didn't have a plan on how to train their teammates, their teams. So they spend a lot of time and money by hiring a team to develop a develop classes and develop those trainings, and also to develop VR solutions. So you have to have this kind of content developed by your team. Approve your budget. What is really important to understand is that sometimes those kind of experiences can be costly. They are not always cheap, but you have to have the whole plan in your head. You sometimes you're going to have a lot of costs in the first cycle of the development of that experiences, but after that you won't have more costs. One, and the training is one good solution. Sometimes you have to spend a lot of money in the first training sessions because you have to develop all the 3D models of your equipment or the things that you want to show in that experiences. But what is important to understand is after that cost that you have in the first training experiences, the second one, you won't need to develop again those 3D models because you have already done that before. So in the second experience, you can use the models from the first one, and then you don't need to pay again for that. So bear that, keep that in mind, that every time that you're developing something for the first time for VR, some of the assets that you're going to develop can be used a lot of different times in a lot of different solutions at the company. For example, if you're using a 3D model to develop one product, you can use this 3D model for training and use this 3D model for marketing and use for in different situations. Sometimes you have to change the 3D models to using those applications, but some of the times you don't need to. You have the 3D models ready to use in all different campaigns in different areas that you have over there. And then you have to do a research if you need to develop these in-house, if you have to have some colleagues developers at the company developing that for you, or if you just need to hire someone to do this. And then you have to think in the future, if this is something that you really understand that is a fit for your company, to have an area or 2 or 3 persons developing solutions, and you think that you need updates every year or every 6 months, you should consider to hire someone internally to have. But what is important to understand is to do one XR experience, you don't need just one developer. You need someone that's going to develop these experiences. You're going to need someone that will take care of the models, 3D models. You will have someone to help take care of the content. So, for example, in a training situation, one person is going to develop the storytelling of the training. The other one should be the one who is taking care of the models. Or if you have the models already, the developer can do this. But sometimes the developer don't understand about the models, so you have to have a person who understands about 3D models. And in other cases, you need someone to develop the content, someone who will help you and your HR team and PO team to develop the storytelling of the training for that experiences. So this is why I'm saying here, research what you have to do, because you have to think and take a look at the bigger picture. And now the wow factor. The wow factor is what something that we call it in VR is that first effect that you have when you experience some kind of VR solution, VR experiences. The first time that you put the headset in the head and you like that experiences, usually you say, "Whoa, it's quite interesting," and that is the wow factor. And that is the moment that you feel that you got the attention of that person. So be aware of the wow factor, understand what brings the wow factor to your boss, to your manager, to your CIO and CEO, because this is how you're going to use this to create more experiences in your company. Mainly to understand, you need to understand what creates the wow factor for your customer, for your client, and something like this, because that is going to be the point that you can repeat with different customers. Now let me talk about the don'ts. There's some things that you should be aware that you can do, otherwise you're going to have problems. Be aware of the costs. I've seen a lot of different projects that spend a lot of money, and then through the years they didn't go well, and then they didn't finish the project at the end. This happened because they didn't plan well what had to be done, how the planning should go. They didn't do a good research on how the product or the service should be by using technology. They wanted to have XR in the company. And this sometimes is really, really bad for the experiences, because if it happens, you will never get money again, investments again, or funding again to do another project. So before spending money on that, do your homework and do the planning on how you're going to use that investment. Understand about data privacy. Some companies have problems with the headsets of virtual reality, and um, uh, some of them with augmented reality as well, because there is no clear there is not a clear path of where the information is coming from and what is it going to. So if you're using data that can't be shared with anyone, if you have some IPs, if you have some important information that can be shared, before buying the headsets and before buying the equipment, you should get in contact with the manufacturer and try to understand about data privacy. This is really, really important. Safety, and by safety, I mean, as I mentioned before, sometimes you can use headsets in hazard environments. You can use headsets in places that the person will have the vision blocked. So for assisted reality, for example, we have two good examples of headsets, the RealWear and Microsoft HoloLens, that you can take the lenses out of your way. In the RealWear assisted reality, you can take it to the sides. And for the Microsoft HoloLens that uses mixed reality, you can take it up and take it out of your field of vision. So you have to take care and have to understand how is it going to be used on the field, because if you don't play it very well, you might be putting your employee in a dangerous situation, and it's not going to be nice. You have to think about usability. So if you're developing one solution, one internal experiences, you have to have a good team that are looking for the usability of the software. You have to remember one important thing, that is, a person is going to put a headset in his head, in the case of the virtual reality, and he's going to be immersed in a new reality. If the graphical content, if the audio is not that good, or if the experience is not well planned, this person is not going to enjoy this, is not going to use this. And then you have that problem of the nice to have and must have uh, situation dilemma, because sometimes people think that virtual reality is nice to have, but it's not a must have. So if you design a poor software experiences in terms of UX and UI, people are more tended to understand that this is something that's not going to be usable every day. So you have to think well, and you always have to get the feedback from the people who are using this kind of technology. I've seen some cases where you develop menus in positions where people feel unsafe and feel not clear on how to use that. Remember that you don't have a keyboard, you don't have a mouse to use in the virtual solutions. You have two controllers that are totally different from mouse and keyboard. So you can't ask, for example, for a person to type a password or type a phrase. In some situations you can use voice commands, for example, that are much simpler to use, that are much safer to use, because you keep your safes in the controls and you say the command to the headset, to the experiences. In other cases, for example, you can use eye scanners to do logging in some applications, for example. So you have to understand that in those kinds of equipments, there are a lot of different opportunities on how to get information from the person who is using. They are not the same one that we are using on mobiles and on personal computers. So it's important to understand the usability of the experiences that you are developing. And the last one is that most of the cases that I've seen to today were built without even trying to understand what are the important measures, data to measure, important KPIs. And this affects the return of the investment, because uh, sometimes I would say that most of the times that when company is investing in VR today, in AR today, they are taking this from some kind of innovation funding, because they still have problems to build use cases and then prove that the investment that has been done will return in 2, 5, or 10 years. So what happens is sometimes that those companies are funding from an innovation fund, but the innovation fund is not eternal. It's going to end sometime. And if you can't prove the return of that investment, the company won't invest again in that kind of technology. So what sometimes happens in smaller companies that don't have a huge amount of funding for innovation, they have like 1 year of lifetime for that kind of solution. And then if in 1 year you can prove that it's okay, it's not going away over and over again. And again, develop your own content, be aware of the costs. And here I'm going to share with you, and you can check in the video later. These are some solutions for all of those areas that I mentioned before. They are solutions that are ready. You just go off the shelf, get out one of them, and put and use it in your company. They are all startups that have been invested, and they are working and growing and bringing even more solutions for you using virtual reality or augmented reality that can be applied tomorrow in your company. So there is no excuse to say that you don't have any kind of solutions to work in your company. All of those solutions can be used tomorrow. You just need to log into the website, buy one headset, and then download the app and start to use it. After planning, please. So that's it, Diana, from my side. If someone have any questions, let me know. Or if you have any question, let me know.
Yeah, thank you so much. Can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fine.
thank you. I'll make sure that the sound is working well. Thank you so much. Okay, very happy to hear this amazing presentation. I really love it because it's a topic that, of course, is relatable for us. I appreciate when you were speaking about remote assistance, because I think that those are one of those very, very great cases. For me, for example, living in another country,
Hmm.
I dream when you show the mesh from Microsoft, having these conversations with my family in another country and simulating that we're getting, a coffee in a coffee shop or something. That is
Yeah.
magical. So I
Yeah.
really appreciate that you brought this case. And the fact that in engineering, I'm an engineer, so that somebody can provide remote assistance in terms of training or telling you what to do, etc. For people who doesn't like to work to offices like me, this
Yeah.
is amazing because we can be in our space, still performing the work and getting assistance or getting the team together. So thank you so much for bringing this. And of
And
course, there are a
this is
couple.
already happening. Sorry to
Yes,
interrupt you, but this is
yes.
already happening. One thing that is very interesting, one good side, if we can say that, about COVID, those processes were even more used because
Mhm.
companies couldn't send their employees everywhere because of the restrictions of flights. So they just sent some equipment overseas, and they because they needed to keep working. So this is something that is already happening. We can't find most of those solutions on YouTube or something like this because some of the companies don't like to share this kind of information, but they are already using this.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Another one that I loved that you presented was about project design, because I also face working, for example, in a construction site before in engineering,
Hmm.
struggling a lot with the 2D drawings, like the layout, and trying to imagine how everything was gonna be used. And then I remember the surveyor saying, "Oh no, this is what it means. These elevations go here and there," and I still was, "What? What do you mean?" So this is amazing now being able to overlay a digital model on top of the existing and now being able to understand properly and perform the specific reviews. This, it seems super simple, but this makes governments, and I say it because I work for the government in this role, millions
Hmm.
of dollars in back and forths between companies and contractors trying to fixing the mistakes that happen in construction sites. So
Yeah.
honestly, this is real. And I
Yeah.
have experienced that myself. Yes.
Yeah, no, and again, this is happening. We already have some cases where the people are using this. This is not everywhere because sometimes this kind of connection between the architect and then the constructors and then the maintenance guys is not well done. So you can't connect the projects because they have different projects. But now you can begin to do the process from the architect drawing using virtual reality and then share with the team that is building the building, developing the building, building the building, and then using virtual reality every day to see if the construction is going to the right side as it was planned before. And then when the building is ready, you can use for the maintenance guys to see if the
Mm.
problem is here in the air conditioning, if the problem in the light, and then can use headsets to mark the problems. And then the other person who is going to fix will come back with the headsets and see the exact point where the person made the mark over there. So
Yeah,
it's
and when
quite
you get on board new employees, they can get the best playground for the training. Of course,
exactly,
amazing. Yeah,
exactly.
I recently saw a new app that is available in Oculus that is called Resolve. I think that is the name, and it's all about BIM and CAD. So in order to be able to
Mm.
make those revisions, etc. So that's amazing. So I have a couple of questions for you, if you don't mind. Is that
Yeah,
okay? Do you have a little
yeah,
bit of time?
sure, sure.
Thank you. So the first one is that we speak about this amazing headset like HoloLens. I also love it a lot. I wonder, in your experience with XR corporate, what do you find that is maybe the best type of hardware for XR corporate related with this conversation here? Or like we hear things outside in just in your personal view. What do you think about this new partnership with Quest Pro and HoloLens? What's going on?
Well, about the headset, it depends on the use, Diana. Because, for example, uh, Microsoft HoloLens interesting because you can take off the lenses off
Mhm.
and work without anything in your field of view. But this is not a light headset. So
Mhm.
if you use that for more than 45 minutes, you begin to feel like a headache because it's heavy on
Mhm.
your head. And imagine that sometimes you're using the headset and a helmet in your head. So
Mm.
it's something
Yeah.
that's not really easy to use for a long period. In the other hand, the lenses are too fragile. So if you're working in a place that might have some parts flowing and flying from equipment, and if you may bump the headset in anywhere, it's not okay, and it's not easy to use because you're gonna risk the lenses. So and the maintenance is not that cheap. So for in hazard in environments where you have a lot of things going on, the HoloLens are not that good. They are really good if there is no movements. If you're looking to stop steal equipment, and then you can get information and use that. Another headset is the RealWear HMT1, or now the Navigator 500 that I mentioned before. Those are for assisted reality. Assisted reality is a little bit different because instead of having a lenses in front of your eyes, it comes as a complement to you. So it's a small monitor that comes in the left or the right side of you, bringing the view from the person who is in the back office. Those RealWear headsets, for example, can be used anywhere because they are really, really light, lightweighted, and you can drop it like from 2 meters in the ground that they don't break. So it's totally different from the other one. And the other headsets like Meta ones and the Meta Quest 2 and Meta Quest 2 Pro, for example, those are headsets to use inside the office, not for the factories, for example.
Yeah.
So they are more built to using in small and closed places where they are not going to be hazards or something like this.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. And thank you for showing us the example of assisted reality. I didn't hear about those ones. I'm going to research about that. We always are learning something new. Super great. Thank you so much. The
You're
next
welcome.
question is, what would be the most maybe relevant KPIs, key performance indicators, to
Mhm.
measure for XR companies that maybe you want to offer an opinion or in your experience?
Yeah, again, depends on the kind of experiences, but the one that I would say is the basic one is how many persons used the experiences, and for example, in training, how many persons were trained using that solution, and how long those training sessions took. So for training, I would say how many persons, how long did it take, and and how that person was evaluated in a test, for example, and comparing that with the person that was trained in a regular situation.
Yeah.
For example, for marketing, augmented reality KPI should be how many times that experience was seen, or how many times the person who saw the experiences clicked on the buy button or in the know more about it button. So it will depend. The important thing is measure anything that you can. Be aware of the GDPR, but measure everything that you can, because information is really interesting to prove that the concept that things is good and that technology can be used anywhere.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I think that we have had an amazing case here, like learning about different uses and things that people should be aware of, what type of mistakes avoid with the do's, and don'ts. It's been a very well-rounded conversation. Thank you so much, Anesio. If somebody wants to reach out to get a hold of you, how they can, learn more about you or your companies.
Yeah, they can find me at LinkedIn, Anesio Neto.
Oh,
It's
amazing.
going to be written somewhere over here in the video, but Anesio Neto on LinkedIn, you can connect me at any time and I'll be there.
Okay, for sure. Thank you so much. I'll be extending my conversation to you because it was a very, very great conversation. Thank you so much.
Well,
And is there anything else that you'd like to add before we go?
use XR for everything. Go there and try and do some tests, then try this. It's really important to do this.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We have to keep up with what is coming up, and for any other profession, I'm sure at some point it's gonna be totally relatable. So thank you for that insight. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, and
Nice to
with
meet
this, we conclude our presentations today, or at least this presentation. I believe there are a couple more. If you want to reach out and check the other ones, you're totally invited. And of course, to follow Anesio Neto on LinkedIn. Thank you so much and see you in the next session. Bye for now.
Bye.